Welcome to Mount McGregor, the final home of Ulysses S. Grant. Let's begin by taking a journey into the past to examine the life of this important historical figure. Hiram Ulysses Grant was born in a small cabin on the banks of the Ohio River in Point Pleasant, Ohio in 1822. His father, Jesse, ran a tannery, and his mother, Hannah, was a quietly devout woman who taught her son patience, perseverance, and humility. His family moved to Georgetown, Ohio, while Grant was still young. His family and others called him Ulysses, and he grew up attending classes in his small brick schoolhouse. As a young boy, Grant's passion for horses was evident. He took on any task involving horses to avoid the tannery work which he did not like. He developed into an accomplished rider at an early age and had an ability to tame and ride the most unruly of horses. At 17, Grant's father insisted, against his son's wishes, that he attend the U.S. Military Academy at West Point. When Grant arrived, he found out that his paperwork for admission documented his name incorrectly as Ulysses Simpson Grant. He complained to the school authorities without success, and the name eventually stuck. Uncle Sam and Sam Grant became his nicknames among his West Point cadet classmates during his 4 years there. At West Point, although still not passionate about military matters, Grant excelled in horsemanship and mathematics, finishing in the middle of his class. Upon graduation, young Second Lieutenant Grant was assigned to Jefferson Barracks in St. Louis, Missouri. While in St. Louis, he visited the nearby home of his West Point classmate Fred Dent. It was a plantation known as Whitehaven. It was on one of his visits to the Dent family that he met Fred's sister, Julia. Grant and Julia shared a love of horses and spent much time together. Their courtship was cut short, however, as Grant was called to serve in the Mexican War. They agreed to be married when he returned. Grant sent many letters to Julia as he faced the hardships and horror of the Mexican War. This is what he said in one of those letters. "My dearest Julia, some of the harshest fought battles that the world has ever witnessed have taken place here. I am getting very tired of this war, and particularly of being separated from the one I love so much." Grant's bravery under fire was displayed when he rode on horseback through the streets of Monterrey, Mexico, to deliver an important message for his commander. He learned valuable lessons about tactics and supply while serving as a quartermaster. At the close of the war, Grant returned to St. Louis and married Julia in 1848. Grant's parents did not attend the wedding, as they did not approve of their son marrying into a Southern slave-holding family. Over the next few years, Grant was ordered to various military posts, and Julia followed, giving him the encouragement and support that would be a mainstay throughout their lives together. Grant and Julia celebrated the birth of Fred, the first of their 4 children, in 1850. 2 years later, Grant was forced to leave his young family and make a harrowing journey to serve at a remote military outpost in Oregon and another in California. It was on the West Coast, while separated from his family, including his second son Ulysses Jr., born in his absence, that Grant is rumored to have begun drinking to excess. Persistent rumors of drinking would serve to haunt him for the rest of his life. He wrote to Julia in desperation, "You do not know how forsaken I feel here. I feel again as if I have been separated from you and Fred long enough. And as to Ulysses, I have never seen him. Kiss our little ones for me. 1,000 kisses for yourself, Julia." Unable to afford to have his family come to him or to transfer back east himself, Grant took the only other option to be with his family. He resigned and went into civilian life. Grant returned to Whitehaven, was happily reunited with his family, and built them a cabin that he named Hard Scrabble. He worked hard to make a living by farming. When crop prices failed, Grant chose to pursue other work, but before he did, he freed the only slave he ever owned. Grant collected rent, sold firewood, and worked as a secretary, but all these jobs proved unsuitable. Grant and Julia had 2 more children, Ellen, known as Nellie, and Jesse. To provide for his growing family, Grant moved them to Galena, Illinois, where he took a job in his father's leather goods store. The family enjoyed a short period of domestic happiness before the nation was torn apart by civil war. When the war broke out in 1861, Grant immediately offered his services to the Union cause. Undeterred by not receiving a commission in the regular army, Grant helped organize volunteer troops. Grant's abilities were soon noticed, and he was promoted to colonel of the 21st Illinois Regiment. Within months, Grant showed himself capable of command and was promoted to brigadier general. His victories at Forts Henry and Donelson in early 1862 earned him the respect of President Abraham Lincoln and helped boost morale among the Northern people. Grant displayed his relentless determination at the near-catastrophic and costly Battle of Shiloh in 1862 and again at the Siege of Vicksburg the following summer. Grant's victory at Vicksburg dealt a major blow to the Confederacy. General William T. Sherman described his friend's determination. He fixes in his mind what is the true objective and abandons all minor ones. He dismisses all possibility of defeat. He believes in himself and in victory. If his plans go wrong, he never disconcerted, but promptly devises a new one and is sure to win in the end. Although at odds with their cause, Grant showed compassion for the defeated Confederates. Julia explained, "He was so sorry for the poor fellows who were opposed to him and that he never could exult over any victory. He always felt relieved, of course, and glad that it seemed to promise to shorten the war. But he never exulted over them." Grant sent for his family whenever he could. He was at his best when with them and often grew despondent when they were away. Grant confided to a fellow officer, "You know my weaknesses, my horses and my children." He always showed affectionate care to his children. His young son Fred accompanied his father to the front lines, and they established a strong bond that would continue the rest of their lives. In March of 1864, Lincoln summoned Grant to Washington to give him command of all the Union armies. Lincoln was fed up with commanders that lacked initiative, and when critics had questioned Grant's abilities, Lincoln stated, "I can't spare this man. He fights." Grant made his headquarters in the East to oversee the final campaign against Robert E. Lee and his Army of Northern Virginia. Grant was persistent and dedicated to ending the war as quickly as possible to restore the country. He sent word to Washington stating, "I'll fight it out on this line if it takes all summer. There will be no turning back." One of Grant's most striking characteristics was his ability to remain calm and composed when under fire. A contemporary described him as follows, "His courage in battle was serene. It was the courage of an absorbed, intensely concentrated soldier doing his duty." John Young. Grant forced Lee's surrender in April of 1865. He gave the defeated Confederates generous terms, and the work of restoring the nation began. Grant, a target of assassination himself, was devastated by the assassination of his friend, President Lincoln, only days after the Confederate surrender. In the tumultuous years following the Civil War, Grant was promoted to 4-star General of the Army and oversaw the occupation and reconstruction of the southern states. Understanding the great sacrifice of the common soldier, he was actively involved with veterans organizations for the remainder of his life. In 1868, although Grant had no real political aspirations or experience, the Republican Party nominated him for president, and his reputation as savior of the Union secured him the vote. Beneath his stern facade, Grant was a rather sensitive and shy man and did not take easily to public speeches or gatherings. His campaign slogan of "Let us have peace" proved to mirror his main achievements during his 2 terms as president. A progressively minded president, he wrote, "I have no prejudice against sect or race, but want each individual to be judged by his own merit." He worked to end the violent actions of terrorist groups such as the Ku Klux Klan. He took actions to secure civil rights for the former slaves, as well as establish peace and assimilation for the Native Americans. Frederick Douglass, the great African-American advocate, said of Grant, "In him, the Negro found a protector, the Indian, a friend, a vanquished foe, a brother, an imperiled nation, a savior." Grant's 2nd term was marred by scandals within his cabinet. Grant endured the negative press and remained focused on his duties as president. His main source of relief from the pressures of Washington were the summers he spent with his family at their seaside cottage on the New Jersey coast. Grant's favorite pastime there was daily carriage rides on the beach. He especially liked driving his carriage fast and once received a fine for speeding while in Washington. Grant left office in 1877, relieved to be out of politics. He and Julia set sail for England to visit their daughter Nellie. Their journey continued, and for the next 2 years, they toured the world, including Europe, the Middle East, India, and Asia. Grant was greeted with fanfare, lavished with gifts, and met with royalty. The commander who had preserved his country and helped restore peace was respected throughout the world. We now invite you to join our tour guides as they share with you the compelling story of what brought U.S. Grant to this beautiful mountaintop retreat, the struggles he endured, his faithful family, and his final victory. Please consider a membership or a donation and help preserve this special piece of our American heritage.